There we go. Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Poz. With me today is a very special guest all the way from the UK. He was formerly of Silver Vision. He is, of course, Mr. James Gallagher. James, welcome to the two-man power trip. How you doing?
Very well, thanks. And I'm glad to be here and thanks for that lovely welcome.
So what is going on in your world? What have you been up to? Obviously, Silver Vision's gone, but what have you been up to?
Yeah, Silver Vision, I mean, I left there, must be, going on 10, 12 years ago. So yeah, I'm just working in the film industry now. So yeah, moved across from DVDs and VHSs that I worked with on Silver Vision and now more into the movie side of the business. So yeah, it's going well.
Just give us a little bit about your background before we kind of delve into Silver Vision and everything going on, WWE releases and DVD wise and VHS. So just what's your background?
Yeah, so grew up in London, still live here, and became a WWF fan in the 90s with the huge, everyone was into Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, all these guys. Got hugely into that in the early 90s. It was a huge, um, massive popularity of in the UK, especially of WWF in the early 90s. Got on that train. Fell out of it for a year or so and then back in again in the around 96, 97. And yeah, I was like a super fan, collected all the magazines, the DVDs, the videos, the toys, everything. And then actually ended up working for the distributor for in the UK and Europe for WWE for video.
So obviously that is Silver Vision. How does that come about though? How do you become like how did you start working there basically?
Honestly, like a friend of mine just seen an advert on their site, seen an advert on their site that they needed someone to help with the production, and that they were kind of like the Coliseum video of Europe, and they were looking like for a production coordinator to help with the tapes and manufacturing, and I thought, well, I've just finished university, I'm looking to work in production or in film, and I thought, wow, this is like a dream job. And yeah, went up for the interview. It was like an hour and 20 minutes on like three different trains, and thought, God, could I ever do this commute every day? But it's the love of the business kept me going back day after day, week after week, year after year.
That's quite a trip. Jeez, so you were very dedicated for sure.
Yeah, about nearly 3 hours a day, up and down. But you know, as part of the job, you'd get a free copy of the WWE magazine, so I'd read that on my commute back, and by the time I got home, I'd had the magazine read.
Nice. That's a good deal. You know,
Yeah.
maybe you could have gotten some more, but I mean that's a pretty good part of the deal, if you will. So when you get there, what's the technical position? Like what are you? Like what's your job when you first started?
So when I first started, I was just a production assistant, really. So it's mainly back in the day the master tapes. So when there was a pay per view, you would get master tapes, and master tapes, if you don't work in the industry, they're kind of like double size of the VHS. So they're like coming from straight from the camera, and they would arrive in the UK about probably the Monday after a pay per view, so the week following. And it was my job really to just pardon me, separate them all out and distribute them across Europe to do all the dubbing in the different languages, French, Italian, German, Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, get them all out, get the audio, so the commentators in each language. So we book the studio for them to do the voiceovers, do the subtitles, and then just basically collate all of that and all censorship requirements, and also probably the coolest part of the job is actually quality control. So I literally got paid to watch wrestling.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you're doing quality control, I mean, you're just making sure there's like no
Mhm.
curses or mistakes, or maybe something happened with the tape at some point.
Yeah, it's more about the quality of the tape. So I'm not just sitting there watching the matches as if I'm a fan. I'm supposed to be sitting there watching it like I am looking for technical issues and glitches. So if there's like a flash or like there's a pixelation in the picture, I would just sit there with my notepad and write down, okay, 18 minutes in when Randy Orton walks out, his back is just covered in like pixelation. We need to like re-encode that, bring the quality up to make sure that people don't send back the DVD. But what's quite funny watching some of the old pay-per-views is that I'd have my list of like technical glitches, but I'd also have a separate list of like botches. like funny things that we spotted on
Yeah.
old pay-per-views. So I'd have my botches list, and I'd go to my colleague and go, right, have a look at all these botches and people coming into screen when they shouldn't and all that kind of stuff. And that was a load of fun, and we should do that as a side gig just to get through the day.
Were you supposed to be editing the botches out, or no? That wasn't a part of it.
Oh no, it's part of the show. I mean, like something like Road Warrior Hawk walking in on a backstage interview by accident and then
Yes.
walking off. It's like
Yeah.
part of the official master tape, but still funny when you see stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that stuff. Sid messing up a promo, and JR's like, "We're live, pal."
Yeah, that's a classic. Yeah, all that kind
It's
of
like,
stuff. There's so much of it.
it's like, "Oh, let's start over. We're live, pal." Like Sid had no idea they were live. Yeah, stuff like
Yeah,
that is great.
yeah,
Harmless, but great. I know
yeah,
nowadays when people say botches, they go crazy because the AEW or anti AEW sites, everybody goes crazy saying, "Oh, botches, AEW botches," stuff like that. I know
yeah,
Jericho too was saying there are no botches, and different guys were getting on those sites.
yeah. I mean, it's live TV, and I mean, people. It's just, it's the way it is, and when you look back, it's funny, and it's part of being a fan. There's botches. It's not going to be perfect. It's a fight, really, isn't it? It's more realistic if there's kind of mess ups. It's not supposed to be choreographed to perfection.
I think Royal Rumble 2005 it was Cena and Batista had that screw up where I guess Batista was supposed to win. They both fell at the same time. Vince comes down the entranceway and boom tears both
Yeah,
of his quads. I mean
yeah,
that is botched of like all time. Just
yeah.
that so funny, so memorable.
But I mean, even though you call that a botch, if you watch the replay of Cena and Batista, they could have done that 1,000 times and they'd never get that as
Oh,
perfect as they
it's
did.
like perfection. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
nuts how they did that.
that's
Yeah,
yeah. Because when I watched that, I was like, oh, that was planned because they fell perfectly.
yeah, yep.
The only botch, I suppose, is Vince sitting in gorilla
Mhm.
all day and like not moving, and then getting up and running out to the ring and jumping into the ring and blowing his quads. Like that
Yeah,
was just crazy.
so funny. But as far as like you're watching the tapes, you're doing some quality control, you're figuring some stuff out. What happens at like what's the process? Like you do that, you give who you giving the notes to, what do they do with the notes? Like where does it go from there?
So yeah, give the notes and say, there's issues. It goes back to the video encode team. So we had a team there that would just be ingesting the tapes, encoding it, digitizing it basically, so it's ready for DVD. So you take it off those big master tapes, then it would go into a piece of software, would run through the software, and they would calculate based on how say DVD could fit a pay-per-view. They would put, if it's a 3-hour pay-per-view, you could maybe increase the size of the file, but if it's like a 3.5 pay-per-view, the size of the file quality would slightly be further down. So we have to be careful not to crush too much content into one disc because it would make the quality worse. So that was an issue all the time, trying to make sure we'd crush enough content onto one disc. And that's why you got in later years some of the WrestleManias. I think it was WrestleMania 2000 where there's like a 2-disc edition. It's because there was just so much content we got from the master tapes that we had to put it into 2 discs.
So as far as like Silvervision itself, what year was that you started with them?
I think I started in 2006. But of course, the company was running from like 88. So I knew of Silvervision because I used to get the Mega Mail catalog. So in the UK, these are pretty popular, like 3 or 4 times a year. You would get these catalogs directly to your house, which would have all the upcoming home videos in there. And I would order them from there. And yeah, so I was very aware of Silvervision before I started. And then, of course, I learned more of the behind the scenes aspects of how the company has run their relationship with WWE and all that kind of stuff when I worked there.
How did they get that relationship with WWE? Like you said, started in '88 with
Yeah,
Silvervision, so they're
yeah.
basically like the Coliseum counterpart there. So how does you know how that whole relationship started?
Yeah, I think so. I think the founder of Silvervision went to a wrestling show in the States, and he, I think he was distributing music, or his brother was distributing music at the time, and he just made a comment to say that this would do great in the UK if we could distribute. At the time, Coliseum were just doing the US market, and yeah, apparently the guy in front of him was actually working for WWF at the time, and said, here's my business card. If you want to pitch for the business, for the international business, give me a call. And yeah, meetings and calls later, they formed it. I think in early around '89, And yeah, they secured the license for the UK market, and the actual license for the European market was 23 years, I think, in total. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, is probably the longest relationship WWE have had with any licensee. So, THQ, 2K, Topps, Panini, any of these guys, no one worked with WWE for 23 years solid. So it's a really long time, and great relationships were formed over that time.
With that relationship and them doing that, before Silvervision, WB didn't have international licensing as far as VHS tapes and stuff?
No, it did not. I mean, it wasn't big here, and it was a bit slow. The boom was a bit slower here. Sky TV picked up. Basically, on the Sky Movies channel, there was just some wrestling on there in the late 80s, and then cable TV was very slow to pick up here. It was only till late 80s, and that's when WWF really started building, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And around that time, there wasn't really any licensees. I think there was card manufacturer and Silvervision, and that was it. Sky, Silvervision, and those guys, and that was it.
Coliseum here. I mean, Coliseum was huge here, especially
Yeah.
the '80s was. I know they had some great stuff going on in the '90s, but I mean, in the '80s that was the big boom and the big the big clam shells, I guess you can call them, cases. I actually have one right here
Yeah.
of the big event. Like the awesome clamshell big time case holders here for the VHS. It's funny to think like, wow, 88, 89, like they missed out on some years there.
Yeah, they did. But I mean, the business didn't really peak until we were getting closer to 91, 92. Of course, selling out Wembley Stadium, SummerSlam 92 was really the peak. That card sold out without even announcing anyone on the card. I don't even know if people were expecting Hulk Hogan at that time or not, but despite him not being on the card, people didn't seem to care. Like they were so into it.
It's funny, I was talking to my buddy about it the other day. I was like, man, that card really could have used Hogan, but it still sold 82,000. So it's like, maybe it didn't need Hogan. It was just WWF was so hot in England. It was like, didn't matter.
Yeah, didn't matter. I mean, people talk about, Bret and Davey, they sold out Wembley Stadium. Well, not really. they were the main event, but those tickets were already pre-sold.
Yeah, Savage Warrior kind of was the headliner, but really we didn't find that out, like you said, till much later. So I mean, it's great, and those guys are great, and it was a great show. But the fans were clamoring for so much WWF that they sold it out before they even knew the card, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's something similar to a degree this time around. We've got the first ever UK pay-per-view, Clash at the Castle, coming up there in about 5 or 6 weeks, and that's sold 60,000. And there's not one match announced for this, and it's in Cardiff, which is harder to get to for people in Europe. So still big here, still really strong.
I guess it's going to be Drew McIntyre against Roman Reigns, but that hasn't been announced yet. I'm just you're just going to kind of have to guess and realize what's going on in the TV shows. But is that one of those things where it's like the fans are clamoring for it and they had to do the show, or was it one of the things where like, oh, WWE just wants to expand the market and let's see how it goes, basically?
Yeah, I think Drew himself, behind the scenes, from what I heard, has been pushing for this for years to do a stadium show in the UK, and I think Nick Khan has also been thinking that they can make more money doing stadium shows. After switching Money in the Bank out of a stadium show back into an arena, maybe they're going to rethink that. But maybe not in the UK. If they've sold 60,000 tickets, then 71,000 capacity, they could sell out or come close to it.
It's weird to do a pay-per-view in a stadium the same night the UFC down the street has a big pay-per-view on. So it's one of those things where it's like, you got to realize Vegas. I mean, like SummerSlam, very smart. I mean, you kind of own the town, the weekend, the night, the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Money in the Bank, that was not well thought out. I know like the thought like, oh, we could do it. Not smart with UFC in town. I know they sold out the smaller venue, but still, you're not going to sell out a stadium UFC having a pay-per-view that night.
No, you're right.
So Clash at the Castle, you're going to be going?
I am indeed. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Good seats.
Yeah, I mean, the seats were incredibly expensive when they first went on sale. So I was, one of those guys just hitting refresh on the Ticketmaster site trying to get cheaper seats, but ended up getting some good seats. And yeah, there's a whole crew of us going, and we haven't been to a show in years, so we're really looking forward to it.
Nice. Funny, my buddy always does like the ticket calculations, and he's like obsessed with like that kind of stuff. And he was saying like they released tickets over there way higher money value, like way higher than he thought they were going to. I guess that was the general consensus amongst you guys too, that you were thinking like, man, these tickets are a little high here. Like they could have lowered them a bit and sold more.
Yeah, definitely. I think they'll learn from that, and if they go again, I think it's just pricing out families. I mean, WWE is younger skewing, I think, in the UK. There's a lot of younger kids that go to shows, and if you bring 2 or 3 kids to this, it's really really expensive, especially hotels, accommodation, and trains to get to Cardiff, which is in another country. It's in Wales, it's not in England. So but yeah, they seem to have sold it more than I thought they would. So fair play to them.
So just going back to Silvervision, I'm always curious about this. WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, comes in and they kind of, they can't do the WWF symbol anymore, and they killed that off, and WWE lost to a bunch of pandas technically, and all that stuff you hear. How come it wasn't affected in the UK? It didn't affect Silvervision.
So THQ that were releasing the video games back then, there was a video game. I think we're talking 2002, right? Mid 2002. They had a game that had just come out at the end of 2001, which had the Scratch logo all over it. So when this ruling came through with the World Wildlife Fund, they were no longer able to sell this game. So they went to the courts and said, well, hold on a minute. This game had a lifespan in the market for a whole year, and you're telling us in May, June 2002 that we can't sell this game anymore. So they appealed to the courts in the UK, and the courts in the UK, as far as I understand it, said that as long as you don't use the WWF Scratch logo on any of the outside packaging, that's fine. You can, as long as you repackage this game, and as long as outside what you're selling to the consumer doesn't see WWF, and thus it won't be confused with the World Wildlife Fund,
Right.
they can sell it. So Silvervision were thinking, well, hold on a minute. We have a whole catalog of WWF master tapes. If we just tag this with WWE all around the packaging, just the same way THQ are doing, then we can release the catalog on the Tag Classics range. So as far as I'm concerned, that is what I've heard is the reason why in the UK, the court ruling said that you can continue to use your original footage and monetize that as long as there's no reference to WWF on any of the packaging. So the Tag Classics then became quite, infamous internationally, that the UK were getting these uncut, unblurred, original videos. I mean, from where you were, did you hear about this?
Yes. I remember thinking, like, how the hell are they getting this great content? We're getting blurred all over the place. Like, it literally was ruining the shows, and you guys were like pristine. So sometimes you go to like YouTube or whatever, and they'd have like, this is the UK version, and you're like zoomed in on it because like, yes, good quality, better stuff, like no blurs, no nonsense.
Yeah. I think it was the WrestleMania anthology they brought up, which was just basically unwatchable.
Yep.
From like WrestleMania 14 onwards, it was awful. And then if you just collected the Tag Classics in the double sets, the WrestleMania's on there, and they had the original music. Dusty Rhodes didn't come out to like Wheel of Fortune or whatever it was he came out in that set.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were getting orders from across Europe, and we also used to get orders from the US as well, because people were finding out about this, willing to pay the extra shipping costs. The issue we had was that we were basing the content on original master tapes. So the original master tape, as I mentioned earlier, say for like WrestleMania 6, that would have arrived in the library in the middle of 1990. So for us to release, and what we were supposed to do was we were supposed to send those master tapes back to WWE.
Right.
And we did do that when the agreement with WWE finished in 2012. But I think originally they were expecting us to ship these master tapes back, on a quarterly basis or whatever. We didn't. And that was the smartest thing I think that Silvervision ever did, is they kept a warehouse of every single master tape. So when it came to the fact that in 2002, when the ruling came out and the name change, I think the actual line that Silvervision had went down to 6 titles. That was it. There's only 6 titles on the line. So then the Tag Classics saved the home video market here because we can go into the catalog. So we were pulling out master tapes that were, 10, 15, 20 years old. The risk with that is it's been sat in a warehouse for 20 years. What is the actual state of the content? Is it good enough? So it was always a worry when I'd pull one of these old titles out from the library, give it to our video guy and say, ingest that, encode that. And it turns out that it's like, oh, it's got water damage on it, or it's not tracking correctly, or it's got issues, or, there were some titles that we wanted to re-release on Tag Classics, but we weren't able to because the tape wasn't good enough. And then there's other ones where you used to have the countdowns as well to these pay-per-views. Like Todd Pettengill would do these like half an hour, 1 hour countdown stuff.
Yep.
And we'd also get these tapes as well. And then there were afternoons me down in the warehouse digging around for these countdown videos, because I think if you weren't a fan, you wouldn't care. But for me, if that was on the VHS release, I'm finding this tape. And if it takes me 5 hours,
Right.
I'm gonna get my hands and knees, get dirty, find this 25-year-old tape, and I'm gonna get it on the Tag Classics. So that was a benefit of being a fan and also working there, that if I got this product, would I like this product or not? So, but yeah, the Tag Classics were fantastic. And even now, if you go on eBay, some of them are selling for crazy money. So I kind of wish I wish I bought every single one myself. Sadly, I don't have all the finished copies of them all, but that's a regret.
Sometimes though, when you get it off eBay, you realize sometimes you don't have the right code, to play it in your player. So you got to get the universal player, whatever. You got to get the different DVD
That's
player.
right. Yeah, you need to get the region 3 or one that will play region 2, which I think you can get quite easily. But yeah, you have to be careful on that. But yeah, the Tag Classics were fantastic. And one of my first roles when I first started there, one of my first jobs was to design the release schedule for Tag Classics. Because when I took over the job, some of them were in a kind of weird order. So I think they put like In Your House 13 and 16 together. And people would always ask, like, why did you put In Your House 13 and 16 together? I think it was just because we weren't sure when WWE would just email one day and say, you've got to stop selling these.
Right.
So we were like trying to get all the best shows out really quickly. But we realized a couple of years down the line, they're not saying anything. So we decided, right, let's do this all chronologically. And it was nice, actually, that it all set up nicely, that every pay-per-view had a partner and it was all chronological. And yeah, it was great to work on them. It really was.
When you look at like doing the schedule and stuff, like as a fan, you're like, oh, this is great. I can't wait to put this together. Like, are you thinking like that? Because I would imagine most people that work there were fans.
No, not at all. No.
Really? Wow. Okay.
No, it's very rare to be a fan that worked there. Yeah.
Wow.
Me and one other guy, I think, were fans, and I would say maybe there's 20 other staff members there. Not one was a fan.
Wow. Is that hard for them to sometimes like stomach that stuff or watch it because they're not really interested in it?
Yeah, there were some comments that had never watched wrestling before, and they're like, "What?" Like, just they'd make comments like, "Oh, this is like a bit homoerotic." They're rolling around the floor topless, and you're like, "Oh, you just don't get it." Like, but yeah, with only like one or two of us that were fans, and that was really key because we would spot issues and errors and make sure that the quality was good enough for the fan that was going to get the product.
When you look back at like, just working there, and what's the experience like as far as not fan wise, but like as the employee, it's like, wow, this is so cool. I'm working here. I'm putting stuff together that I never thought I'd be able to put together. But also, I love the business. I love wrestling. I mean, it's got to be a really cool experience.
Really cool. I mean, when you walked into the Silvervision office in London, there would be standees, like the original 6 foot tall standee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, these cardboard cutouts. I remember there'd be like Diesel and Trish Stratus and The Rock and Austin. They'll be all lined up all across both the floors. There'd be plaques on the walls. There'd be all the pay-per-view posters. We would get sent them every month, and they'd be lined up across the wall, across all the offices. So going back years, it was like working for WWE in the UK. That's as close as you'd ever get to working for them. But yeah, the experience was, as a fan, was unbelievable. And I knew I'd never have another job like that. Like every day is like, wow, this is just this is never going to be the same again. And it's funny because we did a lot of DVDs, especially for different European markets. So we would do, like, at one point, WWE was huge in Italy, and we would put together these like superstar DVDs, like an hour and a half. It'd be like the best of Booker T or the best of Kane, the best of the Big Show. And my job would literally be pick 5 or 6 matches from their career for the DVD. So they would, and then I would send it to WWE and say, these are the 5 matches I've picked. And they would, like, 9 times out of 10, they'd be like, yeah, that's fine, do it. And I'm like, wow, like, I am directly impacting these products by just the knowledge that I have of their careers. And at that point, some of these guys never had a DVD on them. Like, there was never a DVD on Booker T or Kane or the Big Show at that time. And then I remember we did like the best of Raw, and I think there was never any footage on DVD of Raw or SmackDown. That was like never the case. And I remember thinking the first ever DVD that had the Brock Lesnar Big Show ring collapse, that was one that Silvervision did, that I put on a match list. And then there was like the Shelton and Shawn Michaels Raw match that was never on a DVD, and we put it on one of ours. But what was funny was, like, I would put together these match lists, be really proud of them. I'd have a look on a forum, and everyone's like, oh, what the hell is this? Like, who put this together? This guy knows nothing about wrestling. Like, why didn't he put this match, this match, this match? And I'm like, oh my God, because there'd be things like you couldn't do, like no Chris Benoit, no Brock Lesnar, which is funny in hindsight, but there was a time,
yes,
2004 onwards, that he was a no-go, never, no blood, all these different rules that unless you were in the industry, you knew you couldn't do. But yeah, I think I'm pretty proud of those little DVDs that we did and those exclusives. It was cool.
Yeah, it's awesome because here we didn't get a lot of that stuff. And it's like, holy shit, they're getting this great stuff over in the UK, rare stuff and different matches and cool matches. And we're getting generic, kind of sets getting put out. So you guys, and you're directly responsible for putting out a lot of the cool content.
Yeah, I mean, we got the approval. Everything had to go through WWE, but yeah, I thought we had the best. We had the best output we had a better output than the US. But then again, on the flip side, the US did get releases we didn't get. So, like, there was a Superstar Billy Graham DVD that never got released in the UK. There was also like the Legends of Wrestling set that went out a few years ago as well that we never did. So yeah, there were some in the US, and also there was a lot more censorship in the UK. So I think there was in one of the Ric Flair DVDs, I think the Ultimate Collection, there's a bull rope match where there's choking on the neck, and the British censors absolutely hate choking with ropes on necks and any sort of kind of anything to do with that kind of element of suicidal nature in wrestling. They will not even let it be released. They won't put an 18 or a R-rated on it. They just won't even release it.
Wow.
So they would say to us, you need to cut this out or you're not allowed to release it in this market. So that's what happened in Superstar Billy Graham, is that we wanted to release it, but because we had to make so many cuts, because so many of his matches had this sort of hanging nature in them, we thought it wasn't worth releasing. So we never released that. I do have the US copy of it, so I should dig that out somewhere. It's probably worth a couple of quid.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
And then there was and it also happened in, I think it was No Mercy 2007. Randy Orton and Triple H did like a 3 stages match throughout the night or something, and then there was another hanging scene there. So we had to cut that out, and then we got it. The WWE cut it for us, sent it back. We put it on DVD, and I was like, "Oh my God, we're going to get so many complaints that you've cut this whole sequence of a match out on a pay-per-view. How dare you?" Not one person noticed it. No one.
Wow.
No one complained. So the UK version of No Mercy 2007 is not as good as the US one. If you want the complete match from those guys, there's a real cut in the middle of the match when they start using the rope, and if you're really smart, you will notice it. But the network version will be the full version.
See, I hate not getting full versions or full matches. I always say, like, put a warning. I guess it's different. You guys can't do it. Just put a warning, like, yeah, you're going to see something you don't want to see, fast forward or whatever. But I guess you technically can't do that, right? They want it off of it, and you can't even put it on.
Yeah, it's like regulations. So we wouldn't. Yeah, we would be fined. It would be fined in the UK if you put something out that hadn't gone through an examiner like studying it to make sure. I mean, they had no clue. The BBFC, they didn't have a clue about what wrestling was. Originally, when it was released in the late 80s, we used to put an exempt on it, a big E, and we wouldn't have to pay the fees. But then they caught on to that quite quickly and thought, well, hold on a minute, it's quite violent, it's targeted to children, we should be looking at this. And then we weren't even allowed to use blood on the covers of the DVDs either. So you guys in the US would, I think it was like ECW's most bloodiest matches or something like this came out one time. We weren't allowed to use their cover. We had to change because it had a dripping blood effect down the front of the cover. We had to change that. In Germany, we were never allowed to use Elimination Chamber. That word was banned in Germany due to historical reasons. So that show and that event was called Iron Will. So
oh wow, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So stuff like that that we had to deal with in the European market, which was the differences between the US and the UK. And those other things. There was a SummerSlam Anthology set that came out as well. Got a brightly colored box. In the US, the actual inside of the box were all like CD size slip cases, which we thought were quite cheap. So we did full size DVD box sets of that anthology instead. So there's differences and nuances between US releases and UK releases. And real collectors, if you have either the US or the UK, you'll be able to see the difference. And we also had sometimes exclusive artwork. So I was told that everything went to Vince McMahon for approval, any artwork. So
really, wow.
Yeah, he actually would sign off everything. So to try and differentiate products, we would always have to use a US artwork for pay-per-views, but for special collection sets, on the likes of Rey Mysterio or Edge, the 3-disc sets, that kind of thing, we were able to request a special packaging. So we'd get our designers to do a special packaging, and we would number them like 1 of 5,000, and we would, fingers crossed, we'd get that approved. Sometimes we wouldn't, and sometimes we would. But yeah, there's some special edition stuff out there that's exclusive to the UK market as well. I mean, I have, for WrestleMania 20, I have a numbered out of, I think it's at 5,000, the number 2. So that's
pretty
like
awesome.
That's like my number one thing. I mean, if I ever struggle to start paying the bills, I'm sticking that on eBay.
Yeah. Oh, you'll get a pretty penny. Man, the prices jumped. I know you were mentioning a little before, but the prices of some of that stuff, the Tag Classics, I mean, it really jumped.
Oh yeah, big time. And especially like the Mattel action figures as well. Yep. They're incredibly popular.
Insane. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was people, like when I came on Twitter and said, I used to work for Silvervision, people were like asking me like, what about the Silvervision? Like, sorry, not Mattel, Hasbro. I mean,
the Hasbros. Yes.
Hasbro. Yeah. Sorry, my bad. So the Hasbros, they're huge, and people like ask me like, the Silvervision Hasbros, like, what were these? Like, so many questions about these Silvervision Hasbros that are like unbelievably collector's editions. I think it's like Matt Cardona collects them, and he's looking for like the Silvervision Hulk Hogan. Like,
right.
But yeah,
it's funny. He found some like rhythm and blues Greg Valentine that's worth a couple thousand. Did you have any of the Silvervision Hasbros?
No, I didn't. And we dug around in the warehouse when before I left, we had a look around at what was around, and I found like a pair of original Bret Hart sunglasses that hadn't been opened.
Wow.
I found like a Hulk Hogan 91 bandana that I recently rediscovered.
Yes, saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I found we were looking for these Silvervision Hasbros, which we couldn't find. But I think there's it's the Hulk Hogan, like the original Hulk Hogan one, which I think there's not that many out there. There's only, I think, 10,000. So
wow, how did people like get them originally? Did it come with the VHS tape?
Yeah, so I think it was in Saturday Night's Main Event VHS. So there was like a promotion. Hasbro were starting to try and drum up interest in their business of action figure lines. So they just gifted Silvervision 5,000 of these pre-packed figures. They're in these like clear plastic bags. And it was like the very, very first figure. It's like Hulk Hogan's season 1 Hasbro. It's like the very first figure. So they just gifted it. And then, we sold 5,000 of those, and then we got another 5,000 of the Hogan season 2. But then, Hasbro were like, well, hold on, you have to start paying for this, and then that kind of thing came to an end then. But
Yep.
These figures now, because they're quite the Silvervision Hulk Hogan is slightly different to the one that was mass produced. I think what they gave, it's the Hogan that we had, the 2 Hogans really that are different, is that the coloring on the yellow is different. It's more neon. It's almost like it was like a first run, factory run, like practice run, and the yellow's not quite right, so they just gave them to us. And now the irony is that the ones that they thought were like the faulty ones that were too yellow, they're the ones that are worth like thousands online.
Yes.
And everyone's got that original Hogan, like, but very, very rare that people have that neon yellow. And I put something on Twitter about it, and people were just wild to know about who's got it, like how can I get it, like where is it. Like, I couldn't believe it. I wish I knew back then that this was such a big deal. I could have made a pretty penny.
Funny, I got like 3 Hogans. They're not worth that much, although they're worth a decent amount, like for what they should be worth. They're worth pretty good, but nowhere near the Silvervision Hasbro. I mean, geez, people were thousands upon thousands upon thousands for that thing. It's crazy.
I think it's is it the Kamala, which has like the moon belly is like the number one that everyone wants, or something like that.
Yeah,
it's not quite.
And then there's I think Zach Ryder might have them, or Matt Cardona, the prototypes. They actually released the prototype, which it's like the mold of what the figure would become. Those were like astronomical of what they were worth. It's crazy.
Yeah, I thought you meant John Cena for a minute, but
oh no, no,
not that prototype.
Yeah, different prototype. So, is there some Silvervisions that were like unreleased that were supposed to come out, like that? Like this, for instance, let's say like, oh, there was supposed to be, I don't know, Steve Regal or William Regal. Like, was there any like unreleased that didn't happen?
Yeah, there were a few. So we would get the release schedule from WWE, on a quarterly basis, which would list the pay-per-views which we knew were coming down the line. What was interesting is that people may not know, but there was one year, I'm not sure what year it was, I would say it's probably 07 or 08. They actually dropped Survivor Series. They killed it. It was gone. They decided that it was the lowest grossing of the top 4 pay-per-views, and they took it out of all internal schedules. So we weren't allowed to tell anyone outside of this. But then it was back on. So they literally were going to drop that whole series. But yeah, the Superstar, those 3-disc Superstar profile DVDs, they were huge. And some that came on and came out. The Iron Sheik had a 3-disc that was ready to come out. They were producing one. Yeah, that was one that they never actually produced, but they were planning to do. They were also doing one on Jimmy Snuka. That was like a 3-disc set as well. This is like the mid 2000s kind of time. There was also a Goldberg DVD, and this was before that he'd had any relationship through THQ or 2K or anything like that. This was like pre any of that stuff. So he had one that never came out. I don't know what happened. It came on, it came out. Someone asked me if there was ever a Macho Man DVD or VHS that was supposed to come out, but I never seen it on any schedule. I mean, the Tribute to the Troops DVDs are always on our schedule, but we decided not to release them because it didn't really mean anything in Europe. Like it didn't really resonate. We did a lot of DVDs around the UK tours, so like live in the UK, the Raw and the SmackDown and that kind of stuff. And we wanted to do like a 25-year anniversary of that, so go through all the best matches that ever were in Europe, like going back to like UK Rampage and all the way through that kind of stuff. That got rejected. They didn't think it was worth doing. We also pitched an interactive DVD quiz DVD. I don't know if these were big in the States, but do you know, like when Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was really big?
Oh yeah.
They would bring out these quiz versions on DVD. So you would just play Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on DVD. So we pitched a WWE interactive quiz. So it'd be something like, here's a clip of Batista climbing over a steel cage. The footage would pause, and then you'd have 4 options on the screen, like what happens next. Undertaker pulls him off the side. He falls off this side. He falls off that. We thought that'd be a cool kind of Christmas gift stuff, but that didn't really happen. But yeah, they're the ones off the top of my head. They're the ones that were supposed to come out. The other thing to mention as well is that the Tag Classics never actually finished its run because the contract obviously came to an end at the end of 2012. So there were 10 more Tag Classics that we had ready to go, which never actually came out, sadly. So, and they never will now because those master tapes have all gone back to WWE and they're pretty locked away and never to be seen again. So that's a bit of a shame that those never came out. But I think we were going to do one. Some of the best of Raws and the original Bret Hart VHSs are going to be on Tag Classics. And I think the Hulk Still Rules double disc is also going to be on Tag Classic as well. So there's quite a few that were supposed to come out. Maybe I'll put the list on Twitter if people want to have a look to see what they could have done. But yeah, we had catalog numbers for them. We had the artwork finished and the masters ready. You know, as I mentioned earlier, like some of them weren't in great shape because we really wanted to re-release the British Bulldog and the British Bulldogs on Tag Classic, but they just said the master tape just wasn't good enough. I remember it wasn't good enough, and then I think it was This Tuesday in Texas from '92. I think it was on Super Tape '92 was the name of the release. And I think A Year in Review '92. Those tapes were just not good enough quality to put out onto DVD. There would have been way too many complaints. It just wasn't watchable, sadly. So we couldn't get everything out that we wanted, but did a pretty decent job getting through that catalog.
Yeah, definitely. Plus, it's pretty cool, like randomly UK Rampage 91, 92, 93. I mean, those are cool UK fan favorites. I mean, there's a bunch of other ones you guys were able to do. Pretty cool that you know, us in the States were like, oh, you know, you just like, whoa, Rampage. Oh, cool. Like just different tours and shows that you guys would put out in different matches. Always thought it was cool.
Yeah, but you guys must have had some Coliseum Video exclusive stuff too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Was there ever any synergy between Coliseum and Silvervision? Like any sort of connection or partnership?
Not really. I think the Coliseum Video, they did hold the worldwide rights to home video for WWE. So Silvervision were kind of like originally like a sub-license to them. But I think that eventually fell away. Coliseum Video just stopped being a thing. I'm not sure when they dropped off, but it was like, I don't know, like 97, 98, just stopped seeing the name on the front and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then they just disappeared completely. Like, even if you look up stuff now, what happened to Coliseum Video and what else did Coliseum Video put out? I didn't see them put out anything else apart from WWF.
So I don't remember anything else now.
Yeah. So there's like conspiracy theories that Coliseum Video were just WWF, but under another name for whatever reason. I'm not going to, you know, there's no conspiracy theory there or anything, but there's some people think that they were just WWF, but they just changed the name for whatever reason. But as far as I heard, that they actually, they were a separate entity throughout that time. And then WWF home video was created and they brought it in house. I think WWF tried to buy Silvervision at one point as well. But decided they didn't have enough knowledge of the European market and thought, well, you know, let's not break something that, you know, doesn't need to be tampered with. It's working very well, and we'll let them carry on doing it themselves.
So NWO Revolution, that's the last ever Silvervision release?
Yeah, I think you're right. That's good knowledge. I think that's correct. Yeah. When you say Silvervision release, what, on Tag Classics?
Yeah, I think right the last one.
That sounds about right. I mean, it was originally released, I think, just around the name change in 2002, and then it was re-released on the Tag Classic brand right at the end. It could have been was it partnered up with a Razor Ramon and a Diesel, like a two disco, something like that?
Don't remember. You guys obviously you guys doing those Tag Classics.
Yeah,
it might have been. I'm not sure.
I think so, but it was a good run. Lots and lots of really, I mean, some of our popular titles, like, I don't know if it resonated in the US as much, but when the Undertaker Tombstone DVD came out, that was incredible seller, incredible. The Raw 50th anniversary also, I remember, being hugely popular. every WrestleMania. That Bret Hart's first ever DVD when he made amends, that
Yep.
was huge. That actually came out the week I started at Silvervision, and my first ever job was to cut the best of Bret Hart. I was like, seriously, this is my job. I'm cutting up footage from the best of his career. Oh my god, he's like one of my favorite ever wrestlers, and
Right.
then
Awesome.
I got to meet him that night as well, which is just insane. And like, because what used to happen is that when the wrestlers would release these superstar profiles, they'd come over and do autograph sessions back before when. See, now you have to pay to get anything signed. Back then you didn't have to pay. That's the key difference. Like back then they would say like HMV, which is like the equivalent of like Walmart or something like that. They would say like, Bret Hart is doing an autograph session next Thursday at 7 o'clock for his new DVD. Click here to register to try and get a wristband to get in. And they would give, say, 100 fans wristbands. You would queue up, and then you would get your DVD like personally signed by the star. We did loads of them. Bret Hart, Austin, CM Punk. Every time a big release came out, they would come over and do an autograph session, which was really cool. And we get to work in for Silvervision. We'd get to meet them. We'd be behind a barrier and we'd be chatting to them. So it was really cool.
That is awesome. Wow, it's pretty cool, like, to be able to work there and like, oh, by the way, I made this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I made it for you. I picked the matches. I select. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's like I remember saying to Bret Hart, like, "Oh, you see the clips playing of your career above you? Like, oh, I cut that together today." And he was like, "Oh, great!" And I'm just like, I just made a fool out of myself. Like, I'm trying to get praise from a guy who actually did all that, and all I did was
Yeah.
just cut some bits. And like, I remember like Stone Cold saying to me, like, "Oh, thank you for all that you do, and you do a great job." And I'm like, "Is this serious? Is this for real?" Like, Steve Austin is praising me for like a job I just sit in my office like creating DVDs.
Yeah. Cool as hell. But hey, you're preserving history. You're preserving their history and their legacy when you're doing that.
Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, not all the releases were like hugely successful. I mean, some of them didn't do so well. Do you remember the steel books that they put out? Steel book
Yes.
version?
Yep. I had a couple of those. Yep.
Yeah, they didn't sell. I thought they would do much better because they're kind of collectibles and that kind of thing. They're a little bit higher price, but they're really cool, I thought. But yeah, didn't sell well. Stuff on like the AWA didn't sell. Just weren't big enough in this market. I don't think. Probably would have done better in the US, I suppose. World
Did you
class.
ECW sell anything?
ECW did pretty well. Yeah, I think when they did the one night stand pay-per-views, people started really getting into it. That sold pretty well.
Because
The
remember over
W,
here, the first documentary, that was a
yeah,
really good seller over here. Yeah.
yeah, I remember hearing about that. Yeah, it wasn't as big here, but it wasn't on TV here. That was the key thing. It wasn't until like the last year or so it was in business that it was on TV here, so we're late to it. But World Class Championship Wrestling, that was another DVD that came out and didn't do so well here. And then there was they did like the history of the Intercontinental title and didn't do so well. Greatest Families of Wrestling. Some of that stuff just didn't do so well. But on the flip side, we just did fantastic. We'd sell 15,000 copies of a WrestleMania, for example. And it would be in every store, every grocery store. It'd be huge.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the bread and butter anywhere. Everybody knows WWE, WrestleMania, and it just like everybody have to have every year. You know what I mean? Every year you got to go back and get and collect it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it was quite an undertaking, some of these releases, because the US guys releasing it had it easy compared to if you put a booklet in or inside the DVD, that has to be translated into Italian, into Spanish, into German. Like all this takes time, and that's why the DVDs came out much later in Europe, and people are like, oh my god, it came out in the US like in like April, WrestleMania, and we have to wait till July. It's like, yeah, because we have to translate everything. And then sometimes we would get the Photoshop files, the original Photoshop files of the images that were going into the DVD, and it'd be quite funny. It would be pre-touch up, so like remove, suck in Jim Duggan's belly, and all these like things on the side that we have to
Yeah.
do. Take off the spots of Randy Orton's back. like, or you know, I'm just saying as examples. I'm not saying it actually was happened, or you
Right.
know, reduce the size of Eddie Guerrero's chin, or the divas. That was particularly like very very careful of making sure they look perfect and pristine in every single picture. There was all these like rules and regulations what we can and couldn't put out, which was all internal but very interesting.
When you look at Silvervision and the end, I guess it was around 2012. Why did it end? Like, it's just that DVDs and like, everyone was going towards streaming, or like, what was the end of Silvervision like?
So it was you know, I think it was twofold. It was one that there was actually a fire in the warehouse, which was like quite famous at the time, where there was like a lot of arson going on in London on one night, and one of the things that they burned down was actually the warehouse that actually held all the finished DVDs of Silvervision.
Wow.
So yeah, that wasn't fun. I think that was in like November 2011, and a lot of stock was lost, and the insurers, instead of, if the DVD was like £14, the insurers would pay out like the cost of the disc. So like,
Oh
maybe
my
that's
God.
£2-3. So it's like, wow, that's like, 6-7 figures worth of damage there, and not paid out. And
Yeah, because the
around
content on the discs are worth a ton. Yeah.
exactly right. So that was one issue. And then the second issue was that the contract for European DVD rights was up at the end of 2012. And every time there would be like, this would go out to, there'd be contract chats going on for many months. At the time, the WWE had just brought in a whole new load of staff. They were looking to make changes. They want to make a stamp on the European market. And yeah, it just, negotiations didn't go so well. And I think we went across to Fremantle, who are, a much bigger company than Silvervision. Silvervision was a family-run business. Like, the guy who ran Silvervision, like, his wife was there, his son was there. Like, it was a very close-knit family, and when working for them, you felt like you were part of that. Fremantle was a huge multinational company with all sorts of licensees across the world, and I think they were a little bit sexier to WWE. So yeah, the deal was done with them in 2012, and yeah, they had to start from scratch. They had no tag classics, they had no special edition versions or anything like that. They were just started churning out the US releases, and a couple of years later, the network launched.
Yep.
Took a lot of people by surprise. Took Sky, who were doing the TV at the time, by surprise. Took Fremantle by surprise, and it just dropped. The DVD market dropped very very quickly after that. So maybe it was a natural end, and it ended at the right time.
Funny, like VHS is huge, then DVDs, now streaming. It's like, like what
Yeah.
could be next? I mean, yeah, I don't think there's anything else for it to go, but funny to think like the physical copies, they were a little too chunky. Then we get the other physical copy, they're, perfect, like size, but they're still taking up physical space. And then you don't need to take up space. You got the network, so it's funny
Yeah.
to think like where it started and where we are now.
Yeah. And it is interesting. It's like with vinyl, where it's gone all the way back now, where people actually want the original vinyls. Some part of me thinks with all with WWE selling the network to NBC Universal and Peacock, they've been cutting old pay-per-views and Raws right, left, and center. There's like a
Yeah.
cuts list online that I've seen. They've changed so many segments, and really history. When you look at history, if you want the defined look of what happened on pay-per-views in history, it's probably the Silvervision releases that you go to straight away. You
Yep.
wouldn't go to what's on Peacock, because they could be changing things all the time through Peacock.
There's
So it
no
might.
Piper and Bad News Brown on WrestleMania 6
I
because
think that's
Piper
right.
does the half blackface or whatever. So I mean, they just completely take stuff out.
Wow,
They'll
that's
take out
incredible.
Benoit matches. I mean, they'll take stuff completely out.
Yeah. So that's it. Like that, you want the Silvervision Masters are what arrived out the door the day after the pay-per-view. They created that master immediately and shipped it to the UK. So that the Silvervision versions, if you want to look at the closest to the exact version that went out at the time, that's where you'd go to.
Crazy WWE, like their warehouse you mentioned being burnt down. They have a fireproof
Yeah.
warehouse for the tapes. I don't know if you've ever seen that before. I mean, that's amazing, that fireproof stuff.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Isn't it? I think they've got one or two of them, and I think they've got a backup one as well, or something like that.
Yes. Yep.
One in New York, and I think one in Connecticut. Yeah, I've heard about that.
And they're basically saying, like, insurance wise, like WB people, like the archivist, and like Vince would probably say it's priceless. So if like it burned or got destroyed, like can't let it happen. So what are you going to do? They created some fireproof building, which is nuts. Like two different warehouses to house this stuff because they're literally saying we do not want to lose this stuff. This stuff is priceless.
Yeah, and imagine all the stuff they have footage-wise that have never been seen. You know, stuff where people are getting coached on promos and backstage stuff. Like all of that stuff's gold.
Crazy. And I was looking on YouTube randomly for like some Hulk Hogan matches. 'Cause I love seeing like what's out there, what's not out there, and it's not nowhere to be found. This match supposedly never happened, but it's on YouTube. There's no announcing. Hogan and Savage in 1992 reformed the
Mm.
Mega Powers against Jake the Snake Roberts and Berserker. I'm looking everywhere. There's no thing of it, and I looked. It was on a Macho Man unreleased set. So somebody found bunch of Macho Man house matches in the warehouse, and basically like let's put it on an unreleased quote unquote set. And they started to do a little bit of unreleased, but I mean they touched like a half an inch of millions
Mm.
of miles of unreleased footage that they have. I was just amazed by this. Like, wow, the Mega Powers in '92. It came back for Jake the Snake and the Berserker at a house show. I was like, it was so weird, but awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, when you find hidden gems, it's always like I think there's a famous one, Bret Hart and Tom McGee, I think it is. It's like
Yes.
development guy who Bret made look like $1 million, but he was completely like clueless or something, wasn't he?
So they have it now on the network. They were able to get it. It was through Bret Hart's secretary's secretary, something like that.
Yes.
She, I forget her name now. I don't. Mary Kate. So she had the footage. I guess she sold to WB or whatever, or maybe gave it to Bret and he gave it to them. But the thing was, didn't have the entrances. So Arabic TV had the full entrances and everything.
Oh,
If you,
cool.
I think Richard Land, who's a great historian, he has it on Twitter or on YouTube. I think he put it up. But the WB version, because they interview Brett, it's on the network. They interview Tom McGee and they show the match. They only have boom when the bell rings to when the bell rings. This other version, the Arabic version, has the
Oh,
whole thing.
right, I must check that out. That was dropped recently, wasn't it?
Somewhat recently, as far as Richard just put the Arabic version out on Twitter. The WB version, I think, was either last year or the year before. Whenever Conrad was going to bring in Tom McGee and they were going to watch the tape, WB somehow got a version and like
Oh yeah,
quickly got it out there
yeah,
before Conrad could have his thing. Yeah,
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 yeah. Fair enough.
typical, typical WB.
Yeah. I don't know what the first ever Coliseum video release was in the US, but the first one in the UK was Real American Hulk Hogan. That was the first one that dropped here. What was
Nice.
it in the US?
I don't remember. It might have been a Hogan tape, but I don't remember. Or maybe it was Best of WWF Volume One. I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't know offhand. I'm not sure, but I do have Real American. It's somewhere behind me. The Coliseum. I went out a few years ago. I got like try to get all the original Coliseums that I had that I sold, and I wanted them back,
Oh God.
which is crazy because I bought it back for way more than I sold it for, which is just
Yeah,
stupid. But a huge fan, so I wanted to have all this cool old school stuff.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, cool.
So as we hit the wind down, we head towards the finish here. What's the favorite release? What's your absolute favorite?
Oof, great question. My favorite release. Um, I have this. I mean, VHS era. I really liked the 1992 year in review tape they did. I think it was like Sean Mooney, and it was just going through all the main matches and then really great chats in between and sequences in between, like the VHS era. I would say that one was probably my favorite, and probably DVD wise, I would say something like WrestleMania 2000 when it was the first time it was new to DVD and they had like 2 discs. And there was on the second disc, there was loads of like classic moments of WrestleMania, just loads of stuff I'd never seen in that quality before. It just blew my mind. But obviously they've done loads of great 3-disc DVD sets, but I just can't think off the top of my head what my favorite one is. I love the Bret one, obviously. But how about yourself? What's your favorite? I'll go with Year in Review 92.
I love the old Hulkamania tapes. There's a couple of them. I love like Hulkamania 6, Hulkamania 5. There's just, I don't know if I'm a huge Hulkamaniac, but there's something about like when they just throw random matches or have like random announcers like Lord Alfred Hayes is
Yeah.
calling a Hogan match. I don't know, for some reason it's just awesome to me. By the way, Best of WWF Volume 1 was number 3 on the catalog number. Number 2 is Hulkamania. The first ever Coliseum is bloopers, bleeps, and body slams. So
Oh,
I was
that's
thinking,
really
I was thinking of best of. I was thinking Hulkamania. I didn't think of best the bloopers, bleeps, and bodies.
good.
Crazy that that's the first one, but I love all the Hulkamania tapes. Like I said, I went back and I rebought all the old Coliseums. I love that, and I do love. I bought the big event. I love that one, and I actually have WrestleMania 1, the original Coliseum, signed by Hulk. So
Wow.
that's an awesome one.
Yeah, that's great. Keep that carefully in plastic and
Yeah.
away from any animals or anything like
Yes.
tucked
Nope.
away.
Nobody's allowed to touch it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
So who's
Um,
the all-time favorite wrestler? Is it Bret Hart?
I'd actually say it says Davey Boy Smith.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. I mean, I'm obviously biased, and they were pushing him here as a hero for so many years. You can't not, from
Yeah.
'92 all the way through '97. One night only. The guy was on fire. Yeah, I just had a just loved the guy. I thought he was a great wrestler and underrated. Really, when he turned it on, he was up there. It's kind of
Unbelievable.
it's Bret talks a lot about how he carried Davey in SummerSlam '92, which may well be the case. And if you watch the match, yeah, there are areas of the match where you're like, he's 100% in charge of this match. But Davey Boy is not here to tell his side of the story. So people are taking it as gospel, but it takes two to tango. And then they had a fantastic match at In Your House 5 as well, where they were both on it. So yeah, I think Davey was my favorite, closely followed by Owen Hart. When Owen passed away, he was definitely my favorite because he was still with the WWF at the time. Davey had moved on to WCW and stuff. So yeah, Bulldog and Owen and Bret, that's my era, that Hart Foundation time. That's with my peak, and that's where I was like emotionally invested in the product.
Yep. Love it. So what's next for you? I know obviously Silver Vision is 10 years in the rear view.
Yeah.
What's next besides Clash at the Castle? Anything else wrestling related wise?
Yeah, Clash at the Castle, going to that in Cardiff in September. Just waiting for AEW to come to the UK, waiting with bated breath here. We're desperate for them to come over. I think they're finally coming out to Canada. So I hope next step is the UK. Like Tony Khan does own Fulham, which is a football soccer team here in the UK. So we're hoping they would use there's a stadium there called Craven Cottage. So we're thinking it's going to be like Clash at the Cottage or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be great to see that product here. And yeah, I've just sort of set up a Twitter page in the last year or so. So I'm just like digging around old stuff that I found in the Silver Vision warehouse, posting stuff now and then.
Hey, I saw that Hulk Hogan bandana. There you go. That's why.
Exactly, yeah.
That's why I was like, holy shit, Silver Vision. What the hell's going on here? Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd obviously heard of them before from the Tag Classics and stuff, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
It's funny because I mean, we're talking many, many years ago, but I used to go on eBay and used to always try to see what like tag classics were up there so I can buy them. And I was like, oh, it's so expensive. Oh my God. Like it was just too much, but I would always check and see like, oh, let's see what Coliseums I get. Like, so I was always kind of tape hunting and tag classic kind of, but I never bought them, but I was always wanted to, always jealous of some of the stuff you guys had.
That's really great to know. Yeah, it was good. We kind of knew it as well. We knew we were lucky to get this stuff. We did know that. So, yeah, for those guys out there that have every single Tag Classics in shrink wrap, I'm jealous. Like, because I worked there, and even I was too tight, even with the staff discount, to buy them. So, I think in my one regret is not taking a copy of everything when I worked there. What I've got is I've got all the production discs, so I don't have the beautiful sleeve artwork front cover. I've got all the production discs, which are like me with a felt tip pen saying like Hulk Hogan version 2 or version 3 with the date written in a pen on it and stuff like that. But I mean, maybe that kind of stuff will end up being quite sought after. Maybe the people out there would want to see this behind the scenes stuff. So I need to carry on doing my digging. I'm going through all my magazines at the moment. I've got like nearly every WWE magazine from like 2000 to like 2008. So I'm going through that. I'm finding old stuff like sunglasses and bandanas and games and stuff. So stuff I'll find, I'll post on Twitter. So yeah, I would just say, yeah, follow me on there, and yeah, you can find some gems.
What's the Twitter address?
It's the main event 00. So you can find me there. I'm James Silvervision, and yeah, it's just join. It's usually a bit of fun, just finding old stuff, old merch, and yeah, it's been great to be on here and great to chat with you, John.
Yeah, awesome to chat with you. Love talking Silver Vision. Love talking some old school wrestling. Pretty awesome you got to work there, and again, I look forward to the Twitter again because you got some behind the scenes stuff that I'm going to be interested in. People love, even if it's just the disc, but you have the original version. People love that stuff.
Yeah, I'll try and dig some of that stuff out. There's also a video that was made of the warehouse, which I know an old colleague of mine has. So I'm just going to try and
Wow.
dig. I'm going to try and dig that out if we can find that. And yeah, just bits and pieces like old. I'm going to try and dig out some old catalogs and bits and pieces. So yeah, there should be more to come.
Awesome. James, thank you so much for all the time. Really
No
appreciate it.
worries. No worries. Great to be on.